Hi, you guys. I decided to make this video today to talk about why in the world you should decide to write a letter to the universe or to God. But I find that people find that they have less of a resistance to quote unquote God because what you're doing is you're just trying to impress your subconscious mind, okay? Remember, you have come down into this world with certain faculties that the physical body is endowed with. Whether we can understand it today or we will be able to understand it in a few, maybe 300, 500 years, when the world comes around and they have the technology where they can figure things out. Okay, here's what I figured out. If you write a letter to the universe and you write down everything as if you already have it, and you read it first thing in the morning, or you read it midday after lunch, after you've eaten something, or you read it like just midday after your lunch break at work, that's pretty powerful too, because you're coming down into a different like vibration, especially if you have like a really high intensity job like I used to have, where I was like in fast food and I had to hit those like alpha brain waves of I need to be very very focused right now, and and make hundreds of orders, uh and then you'd get your break, and then you're dropping down into like a different frequency. So while you're still coming down from, you know, it's going to take you a moment to come down from the alpha waves. So you want to read your affirmation, get in your car, go somewhere quiet, and just read your affirmations when you're in those like alpha brainwaves. And I found that that was very effective too. Um, the other one is to read them before bed. I know a lot of people like to do like you film your own affirmations and then you do a loop player, which I have done before. But what I find with the loop player is that it feels like such effort, right? You have to effort very hard into that and you have to do it for such a long time. I found the same situation when I was like, you know, I would pray. I mean, I still pray. Don't get me wrong. I still pray. I still, all of these things, and I do believe that there is like, a higher power and it does help us out and all of that. But I also know that there is certain things within us that, you know, we are endowed with certain faculties that we came down here with. It's the reason why when you think of someone, oftentimes your phone just rings. Why? Because that's called quantum entanglement. We are entangled to people, and Bob Proctor used to talk about this a lot. He used to say, when you think of somebody, it's like you're telephoning to them. You got on their frequency. The minute they come into your mind, the you know your your mind and their mind connected. And he used to talk about that a lot, and I am, you know such a fan of Bob Proctor. He was amazing, but he did have some limiting beliefs in my opinion. His whole like paradigm ideas that, he believed like you couldn't get out of these paradigms and they would just keep adjusting like a thermometer. And I think that that in itself can be a good way for people to understand, like, basically how the mind works. But I don't think it's good or healthy to believe that, you can like never change it and you're always going to have the effort to it, and that you're never going to set into this, you know, state or whatever, because that's not true, and you will set into a better state. It does take practicing a new vibration for a long time in order for you to kind of just think naturally from that space and from that place, right? But you can do it. It is possible. And so that was one thing that did not resonate with me from his ideology. But what I will say is that I did like what he said about the whole, like, we come down here with certain faculties, and he has these older videos. If you ever get a chance, check them out. And I also have it was 2020, literally, like, the pandemic was going on, and the company his company did a whole, like, free, they gave it all out. It was all free, basically, like what you would go do. And if you had to pay for it, and it was like they gave it all out to everybody, and it was one of the most incredible. Uh, like, they give you a booklet. I printed mine out. I still have it. Um, Pretty much everything that I wrote on that book came true in that booklet. And he tells you about the subconscious mind. He tells you about the conscious mind, how the conscious mind can reject things because it's aware, and it can be like, no, no, we're not gonna, I don't believe that. And you are actually operating from your conscious mind. That's where you are. You are operating from that dimension of yourself. But you have another dimension of yourself, and it's called the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, whatever you tell it, it accepts. So today, please let us tune into the subconscious aspect of ourself and our subconscious dimension, and believe that we do not know what we are. We do not know who we are. And that reminds me, there was like this other verse in the Bible, and it said something along the lines of, we do not know what we are until we see him. And it's talking about how even the disciples didn't know what Jesus was, and they were like, we do not know what we are meant to become until we see him. You do not know who you're meant to become because you haven't seen who you really are. And for that reason, you must please stop limiting yourself. Don't limit yourself. We're only here for a little while. And I can tell you, as a person who, I've seen a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people thought they had way more time than they had on this world. And before you know it, darling, it is over. Did you live? Did you, were you everything that the Lord called you to be? If you truly believe in the Lord, were you everything that the Lord called you to be? Because I know a lot of people attack me. Oftentimes they're like, oh, how can you believe these things? How can you believe these things? These things are not Christian, this, that, the other. Darling, everybody finds God in the aspect that I think perhaps they express the divinity of the Lord, right? So before you come for me in that sense, please understand, uh, we are not the same. We are all walking different paths, even though we technically are all capable of the same thing. So I leave you all with that, and take care of yourselves. Go check out Bob Proctor. He was amazing. There was another thing that he said, and he talks about everything that you have ever wanted to create is already here. Every idea, every dimension, every timeline, everything, everything is already here. Every single idea. How to make a phone was already here before there was a phone. How to make an iPad was already here before there was ever an iPad. And Steve Jobs, he's my favorite. He's my favorite because we're buddies. We're buddies. And my birthday, like, we have the same sign, we have the same birthday. So, like, yeah, he said you cannot connect the dots looking forward Nothing will ever make sense to you when you're like trying to figure it out. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make the iPad? Blah, 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 blah. You need to use the ideas and things that have already been created in order for you to discover what hasn't been created. So you can only create something when you look backwards. And I always say, there was this other thing that said like maybe time is only perceived as us, we perceive time going forward, but time might actually go backward, because there was this whole idea, I think it's called emergence theory, and it says you can actually influence yourself at your moment of death. You can change reality. And I think that's why reality truly is constantly changing. I don't know if about you, but I notice every Mandela effect. I notice everything every time that I notice every reality shift. I really do. And my mom too. She notices it too, and we both notice it. And we're like, "Was it? Didn't this actor like pass away, and now they're like suddenly alive or whatever?" And we're like, "Hey, I don't know. I don't know why I was gifted with this awareness or what it is. I don't even know if it's a gift some days, but all I can tell you is that perhaps you're more entangled and connected to things than you think. And there's been a lot of times in my life, uh, three separate times actually, where I dreamed things right before they happened, like big events. Because I do dream things before they happen, but this was like big events. And I remember the third one, I was able to change the outcome of that event because of this one girl. uh, she told me that the same thing happened to her, and I had never really talked to anybody about it. And she told me that the same thing happened to her, and she told me that these things came to us because we were meant to change it. And she told me that, and I told her that I didn't know if I had this like power to change it. And there was a situation where one of my friends, I had this very crazy dream, and I'm pretty sure that the person in the dream symbolized him, and I was able to change the outcome of what the dream told me that this person would do to themselves if their house went into foreclosure. And I was able to tell him to do a subject to loan. He had never heard about it, but I've been studying all of that because I study Chris Haskins and everything. And then also, uh, I always see the commercials. The commercials appear to me, right? But somehow he's been watching the same TV that I've been watching, this guy, and he never noticed the commercials. So like this was something else that Bob Proctor talked about. You could have two people watching the same program, watching the same thing, observing the same thing, but because your mind is not always in this dimension. You're not always in this dimension. You're not always in this frequency. When he said frequency, he referring to this dimension. And you go in and out, right? You go into your imagination. That's a different dimension. You come back and you're like, oh, I'm here, I'm present, I'm in the conscious mind. Then you go back and you start thinking about things that people have told you and all this stuff. You're and you go into your, subconscious mind or whatever, and then you go back into your imagination. There's more to you than what you think. There is more to you than what you think. And I think that I really hope we are becoming more aware of this. And oftentimes, people in my life that have passed away, I like to think of myself that they are somewhere in in the past or somewhere in this timeline that you know we see it as going forward, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does go backwards. Uh, so yeah, you know that one movie where there's these like aliens and they talk to this one girl and they communicate with these like smoke or ink circles. That movie, uh, I've actually never watched it. I just watched like the what were they called, the trailers. But that concept and idea was what got me thinking about that. I was like, wait a minute, maybe time goes, you know, like maybe time does not go forward. Maybe we just perceive it as going forward. Maybe time actually goes backwards, which would make way more sense, right? Like, it would make more sense. Like, I don't know. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves. And I hope you guys go and write your letter to the universe. If you need any help with that, please let me know. And I will definitely help you. I'm very good. I'm very good with the words. I definitely have the the gift of the gab. Here, gift of the gab. Ba 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 ba. Okay, gab. Okay, take care of yourselves. Bye.